Before my parents passed, they arranged 3 potential marriages for me. Whoever I chose would become the sole heir to the Anderson Corporation. In my last life, blushing, I chose Chloe Vance, the girl I'd adored for years. But less than a year into our marriage, Chloe died from an illness. Yet one night, a decade later, I saw her, the woman who was supposed to have been dead for years, passionately kissing Caleb Hayes. In that instant, I understood everything. Chloe already had someone she loved, and her death was just an elaborate lie so she could run away with him. Later, in a car crash, Chloe died saving my life. Before she died, she told me, "Ethan, I know I shouldn't have deceived you, but Caleb and I are truly in love. If you get another chance, please don't choose me again." Then I lost consciousness completely. When I woke up again, a voice said, "Ethan, you're a man now. Have you decided who you want to marry?" The deep, resonant voice left me stunned for a long moment. I had been reborn, sent back to the day of my 20th birthday. I looked up to see my grandfather, looking so much younger, watching me with a kind expression. I clenched my fists, memories of my past life flashing before my eyes. The final image was Chloe, lying in a pool of blood, her voice trembling as she begged me. Her words were a knife twisting in my heart, the pain so intense it felt like a raw scream. "Grandpa, I'm not choosing Chloe," I said, my voice frantic. "I choose Blair Waldorf." "Blair?" Grandpa coughed in shock. "Don't you hate her?" Blair Waldorf, my other half in the duo they called the Demon Twins. We'd start fighting the moment we saw each other. In my last life, she moved to Germany with her family and, for reasons I never knew, she never married. "Ethan, are you sure about this?" Meeting my grandfather's hesitant gaze, I took a deep breath and nodded firmly. "I've made up my mind. It's her." It was true that, in my last life, Blair and I were total frenemies, constantly bickering and playing pranks on each other. But looking back now, those chaotic years of fighting with her felt so much warmer than my entire marriage to Chloe. Since fate has given me a second chance, I refuse to dive back into that frozen hell. Seeing my resolve, Grandpa didn't press the issue. He picked up his pen again. "I'm getting old. I don't understand you kids anymore. That Waldorf girl, she's a wild one, but I can see it. There's a light in her eyes only for you." His words made my heart skip. I instinctively wanted to argue, but he waved his hand, cutting me off. "Ethan, that's enough. My eyes are tired. The choice is made. The wedding will be in 2 months. It's supposed to be a once-in-a-century lucky day." As I walked out of the study clutching the thin marriage certificate, a cold, clammy sweat broke out on my palms. I suddenly remembered my past life, how I joyfully rushed to tell Chloe the news, only for her to reply coolly, "Is this supposed to be good news? Why are you so excited?" Now, knowing what I know, I finally understood what she meant by that. I walked through the long hall and out into the courtyard, where I saw a few familiar faces. "So, who did Ethan pick?" Sophie Miller, the most energetic of the group, asked first. Leo, who loved stirring the pot, chimed in. "Is that even a question? Out of the 3 of you, the least likely is Blair. Everyone knows Ethan is crazy about Chloe." Following his comment, my eyes landed on the 2 women in question. Blair, ever the nonconformist, was lounging on a tree branch with her eyes closed, looking completely unconcerned. Chloe, on the other hand, stood there in a stylish trench coat, the fabric catching the breeze. In my last life, I was hopelessly lost in that hazy, unreal kind of love for her. I was about to speak when she beat me to it. "Ethan, my heart already belongs to someone else. Please, just let me go." Her words struck my heart like a hammer. This conversation never happened in my previous life. Looking at her now, a terrifying thought crept into my mind. Was it possible she was reborn, too? That would explain why, this time, she was willing to defy my grandfather's wishes to be with the man she loved. My voice trembled as I held up the certificate. "Chloe, this was written by my grandfather himself." "I know, but I'm willing to give up everything," Chloe said, her tone pleading, "just to be with Caleb." That familiar name was like a thunderclap. It wasn't just me. The other 3 were stunned into silence as well. Because of my withdrawn nature back then, Caleb had been my one and only friend for a very long time. We had been through hell and back together, only to be torn apart by a woman when things finally started looking up. My parents died saving her parents. Considering our history, she had no right to be this cruel to me. Sometimes, when the pain is unbearable, all you can do is laugh. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a giant fist. I tried to control myself, but the sheer determination in Chloe's eyes was a blade twisting inside me. If she didn't love me, why did she send so many mixed signals? In a corner of my study, there's a box with over 100 of her love letters, every single one filled with words of longing and affection. As Chloe started to speak again, I almost blurted out, "You got your wish. I didn't choose you," but I swallowed the words before they could escape. She kept me in the dark for 10 years in our last life. Why should I make things easy for her now? The wedding isn't for 2 months. I'll let her stew in her own misery until then. With that thought, I put the certificate away. The decision has been made. As for who I chose, you'll all find out in due time. And when the day comes, I expect all of you to be at my wedding. I turned and walked away, but as I rounded the corner, I bumped into someone who couldn't get out of the way in time. I looked down and saw Caleb on the ground, tears glistening on his eyelashes, threatening to fall. Before I could even react, Caleb grabbed the hem of my jacket. "Ethan, you already have so much," he pleaded. "Can't you just let me have Chloe?" He started to kneel, but just before his knees hit the ground, Chloe swept him into her arms. She glared at me, her eyes filled with fury. "Ethan, if you're angry, take it out on me. Why are you treating Caleb like this?" Caleb leaned into her embrace, looking utterly wronged as tears finally streamed down his face. "Don't, Chloe. It's all my fault." The more he acted like this, the more I looked like the unreasonable bully. I was shaking with rage. With that, he ran off, his eyes red, leaving a trail of choked sobs behind him. "Caleb!" The ever-composed Chloe panicked, shoved me out of her way, and ran after him. I stumbled and fell, my head hitting the wall. The world spun around me. Through my blurry vision, I saw a figure running toward me. "Ethan!" It was Blair. She had come back. I woke up in the hospital. My head was bandaged, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic. My voice was hoarse. "Excuse me," I asked. "Who brought me here?" My mind was so foggy before I passed out, I still wasn't sure if the panicked face I thought I saw was real. The nurse changing my force smiled. "It was a Miss Waldorf." I froze for a second. It was really Blair? That's right. As if she thought I wouldn't believe her, the friendly nurse handed me the check-in form. I closed the file, a warmth spreading through my chest. It really had been Blair. So where was she now? Where did she go? Did she leave a message? The questions tumbled out of me one after another. The nurse covered a smile with her hand and answered patiently, "Miss Waldorf stayed with you all night. She only left this morning because of a family emergency." She paused, tilting her head. When she left, she said something like, "There's no point in me sticking around anyway. I might as well go on a trip," but she promised she'd be back for your wedding to give you a gift. The dark cloud over my heart lifted, and I almost laughed out loud. If Blair knew she was the bride, her jaw would hit the floor. During my recovery at the hospital, the gossip about Chloe and Caleb was nonstop. "Did you hear? For Caleb's birthday a couple of days ago, Chloe rented out all the LED billboards on Wall Street to declare her love." "That's nothing." At the auction yesterday, to make her smile, he was dropping millions at a charity auction, basically setting money on fire. And this morning, someone saw them bundled up, sneaking into the maternity ward at the hospital. My friend Sophia was indignant on my behalf. "Ethan, what is Chloe's deal? Wasn't she the one telling everyone she was going to marry you?" I looked at the light reflecting on the wall and suddenly smiled. Back then, such a beautiful and cruel phrase. When I got home from the hospital, I pulled out the old wooden chest from the corner of my study. I opened the lid. Inside was everything related to Chloe. Things Chloe had discarded, I had treated like treasure. Hundreds of love letters. They felt so light in my hands, yet so heavy. I gave them one last look, then closed the lid and locked the chest. It was time to go to the Vance estate and return her property. I drove over to the Vances, but Chloe wasn't there. The butler told me, "Miss Vance and Mr. Hayes went upstate for the day." I didn't care where she was. I just had my security detail leave the chest there. As I turned to leave, I heard two familiar voices. "Chloe, you're so good to me. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." It was Caleb. Then came Chloe's indulgent reply, "Caleb, I don't do these things for repayment. As long as you're happy, I'm happy." "But," Caleb hesitated, "what about Ethan? He's been in love with you for years. He must have chosen you." His voice broke at the end, and Chloe immediately rushed to comfort him. Don't cry. I won't let Ethan take me away. Caleb, ever since you saved me from that fire, there's been no room in my heart for anyone else." Hearing that, I froze. The fire? Wasn't I the one who saved her from that fire? The auditorium had caught fire that day. I had already made it out safely, but when I heard Chloe was still inside, I ignored everyone's warnings and ran back in. I collapsed right after I got her out. The last person I saw before I blacked out was Caleb. Had he used that opportunity to take the credit for himself? I stumbled backward, knocking over a vase on a pedestal. The sharp crash was followed by frantic footsteps. "What are you doing here?" Chloe was clearly shocked to see me. Looking at her worried face, I found the whole situation laughable. In our last life, she gave up everything to run away with Caleb, and now I see that her entire reason for loving him was built on a pathetic lie. I fought the urge to tell her the truth, forcing myself to stay calm. It didn't matter anymore whether she knew or not. I came to return something. I stepped aside, revealing the wooden chest behind me. The color drained from Chloe's face. "What is this?" "Your dowry." The mockery in her voice was obvious. Beside her, Caleb was clenching his fists, trying to hide a smirk. "Chloe, where do you get this confidence?" "This is..." Before I could finish, Chloe cut me off. "Ethan, just give up. I love Caleb now. If you call off this engagement, we can go back to how things were. But if you try to force my hand, I promise I won't let you get away with it." I was shaking with anger. How had she twisted this to make me sound like some pathetic leech she couldn't shake off? "I didn't choose you." "Oh!" Two sounds overlapped, but Chloe's attention was already entirely on Caleb, who had suddenly collapsed to the floor. Even though we were several feet apart, Caleb flinched and avoided my gaze, acting as if I had terrified him. Seeing Caleb's distress, Chloe shot me a venomous look. "Take your chest and your men and get the hell out." Then she bent down, helped Caleb to his feet, and led him inside without a backward glance. I stood outside, watching her carefully pull him into an embrace, gently comforting him. "It's okay. It's okay." I had known that gentle voice, that comforting touch, once. I never doubted her feelings were real, but real feelings can change in a heartbeat. For the next few days, I shut myself in at home, refusing to go out or see anyone. That was until Mrs. Davis burst in, looking panicked. "Mr. Ethan, I don't know what's going on, but Miss Vance just forced her way in with her bodyguards. She's insane." I didn't even look up. "Throw them out. I don't want to be disturbed." The words had barely left my mouth when the door was kicked open with a loud bang. Chloe stormed in, her eyes bloodshot with a rage that looked ready to consume me. "Ethan, why did you hire someone to run Caleb over?" I was completely baffled. "What are you talking about? Just because I told you to get lost the other day, you decided to take it out on an innocent person?" Chloe grabbed my wrist without another word and started dragging me toward the door. "You're coming with me." I shoved her away. "Chloe, are you insane? I haven't left this house in days. How could I possibly?" But Chloe wasn't listening. She grabbed my wrist even harder, half dragging me out and shoving me into her car. Outside the ICU, I saw Caleb lying in a hospital bed, pale as a ghost, his head and arms wrapped in thick bandages. Mr. Hayes suffered a ruptured spleen, causing massive internal bleeding. He also has a fractured ankle and multiple abrasions. The surgery was successful, and his condition is now stable. He's in recovery. With every word from the doctor, Chloe's expression grew darker. When he finished, she turned to me, her eyes like chips of ice. "Do you have anything to say for yourself? Look how much you've hurt Caleb." I met her gaze without flinching. "What makes you so sure it was me? Did you call the police? Did you check the security footage? Do you have any proof?" The rapid-fire questions seemed to give Chloe pause. The accident had happened so fast, she'd lost her head, blaming me entirely based on a few words from Caleb. She must have known there could be more to the story, but the sight of Caleb, bleeding and broken, had overwhelmed her with pity. Right before they wheeled him into surgery, Caleb had been clutching her hand, begging her to get revenge for him. The thought reignited her anger. "If it wasn't you, then who was it?" "Ethan, I can't believe I never saw how vicious you could be." Chloe closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were filled with a cold, venomous light. "Ethan, don't blame me for this. You brought it on yourself." With a wave of her hand, several well-trained bodyguards stepped forward and pinned my shoulders. I stared in disbelief, a sudden, bone-deep chill running down my spine as I realized what was about to happen. "Chloe, what are you doing?" My hoarse question echoed in the hallway, the tremor in my voice betraying my fear. "My grandfather runs this city. You wouldn't dare touch me." The grip on my shoulders loosened for a second, but then Chloe's voice, cold as ice, cut through the air. "If anything happens, I'll take responsibility." At her command, the bodyguards no longer hesitated. The world went black. When I woke up again, I was in my own bed. "Ethan," Mrs. Davis, who had been with me since I was a child, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She took my hand, her voice thick with sympathy. "That Vance girl has gone too far." I looked at the ugly bruises covering my arms. "Where is she?" My voice was cold, stripped of all emotion except for a deep, personal grudge. I've never been one to take things lying down. The only reason I let Chloe walk all over me was because I still loved her, giving her chance after chance to hurt me. But now that last shred of love is gone. It's time to settle our accounts. She's locked in your grandfather's disciplinary room. She took both my hands in hers. Child, I've watched you grow up. I know better than anyone how much you cared for her. She paused, her voice turning into a plea. But she hurt you for another man today. Tomorrow, she could kill you for someone else. People like that don't know how to love anyone but themselves. I patted her hand reassuringly. Mrs. Davis, don't worry. I'm over Chloe. The words had barely left my lips when the door swung open. I looked up and saw Chloe standing in the doorway, covered in marks, her back slumped and her face as white as a sheet. Ethan, what did you just say? I was about to answer when Chloe cut in, feigning nonchalance. That was an unfortunate incident, and I've received my punishment. Let's just let bygones be bygones, Ethan. Can we please not get stuck in the past? She then held out a thin cane she'd been hiding behind her back, as if to say, if you still can't forgive me, you can beat me until you do. I looked at the cane in her hands and suddenly laughed. Chloe, do you really love Caleb that much? Yes, she answered without a moment's hesitation. And Caleb told you himself that I was the one who hired someone to run him over? Chloe was silent for a moment before replying, her voice distant. Ethan, Caleb is innocent in all of this. Just answer the question, yes or no. Yes. I got out of bed, walked over to her, and tilted her chin up with my fingers, looking down at her. So, in your mind, I'm some kind of monster? Perhaps my gaze was too sharp, too unfamiliar, because for a moment, Chloe seemed at a loss for words. After a long silence, she finally whispered, yes. In the same motion, I snatched the cane from her hand and brought it down hard. Chloe was both shocked and furious at my sudden violence. Shocked that I would actually strike her, and furious that I was still being so relentless after she had already apologized. Just then, Chloe's phone rang. It was her assistant. Miss Vance, Mr. Hayes is awake. Hearing the news, Chloe's entire demeanor relaxed. Forgetting her own pain, she turned with grim determination and walked away. Watching her leave, I put a hand to my chest, overcome with a strange sense of relief. Thank God I'm not in love with you anymore. I don't know what Chloe said to Caleb, or maybe his injuries were just that severe, but I heard nothing about either of them for the next few days. That is, until we all ran into each other at a gala I couldn't get out of. Caleb's injuries hadn't fully healed. His ankle was still bandaged, and his pale, fragile appearance was designed to evoke pity. To care for him, Chloe hovered by his side, giving him water when he was thirsty, offering him fruit when he was hungry, and catering to his every whim. Miss Vance is so devoted to Mr. Hayes. They were childhood friends, you know. It just goes to show that those early bonds are the strongest. Hey, you've got the wrong guy. That's not Mr. Anderson. Because of him, Mr. Anderson was just... All eyes turned to me, but I acted as if I didn't notice, simply raising my champagne glass in a silent toast. Most of the guests were from our social circle, so they all knew something about the history between Chloe and me. Seeing the it couple of the year fall apart like this was bound to cause some whispers. Chloe, I've known you for years, Leo said, stepping forward to defend me. But I never realized you were so two-faced. Another friend immediately jumped in. Ha! I think that fire must have cooked her brain. Imagine abandoning the person who saved your life. With a sharp crack, the glass in her hand shattered. Chloe's eyes instinctively shot to me, wide with shock. Ethan was the one who saved her? As she stood there, stunned and uncertain, the color drained from Caleb's face. He dug his nails into his palms, not even feeling the pain. I watched them both, a small laugh escaping my lips. What's in the past is in the past. There's nothing more to say. Come on, Ethan, tell us the story. Leo egged me on. Yeah, we've been dying to hear about the exploits of the great Ethan Anderson. You really are your grandfather's protege. Amid the clamor, I slowly rose to my feet. All right, but before I could continue, Caleb suddenly stumbled, lost his balance, and collapsed to the floor. His wound tore open, and fresh blood immediately soaked through his bandages. Chloe, it hurts, Caleb gasped, his lips white with pain. He sucked in a sharp breath, his face ashen. Seeing tears welling up in his eyes, Chloe forgot everything else, helping him up and saying, "Excuse us." She supported Caleb as they left, and she didn't return for the rest of the evening. After the party, I stood on the sidewalk, the cold air helping to clear my head. Ethan, a familiar voice. It was Caleb. I didn't want to talk to him. I started to walk away without turning around. Sensing my intention, He limped quickly to get in front of me, blocking my path. What are you doing? My voice was laced with irritation. Ethan, can't you just let me have Chloe? Fine, I promise. I smirked. Words were cheap. I could give him as many answers like that as he wanted. Ethan, I know you're lying, Caleb said, his eyes red as he launched into a monologue. I'm not like you. You're so lucky, always surrounded by people. All I have is Chloe. I burst out laughing, so hard that tears streamed down my face. In 2 lifetimes, this was the first time anyone had ever called me lucky. Lucky how? For losing my parents and stumbling through life alone? For having the woman I loved for years push me into an abyss? Growing up really is a painful, flaying process. Then believe I'm lying. I looked at him coldly. He already had his answer, so anything else I said would be a waste of breath. Caleb's expression shifted, his face becoming a dark, unreadable mask in the night. If that's how it's going to be, Ethan, then don't blame me for what happens next. I heard a strange noise. 2 yellow beams of light cut through the darkness. I looked up to see a car speeding directly toward me. My eyes flew open. With a deafening crash, I was thrown more than 30 feet. When Chloe arrived, she found both of us lying in pools of our own blood. Chloe, help Ethan, Caleb rasped. His voice as fragile as a dry leaf. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. Chloe frowned, cradling Caleb in her arms. Don't be scared, Caleb. It's okay. I'll get you to a hospital. What about Ethan? Caleb pressed, determined to force a choice. The coppery smell of blood was thick in the air. Forget him, Chloe said, her voice dripping with contempt. The wicked live long lives. This time, even without Caleb saying a word, Chloe had already decided I was the villain. Hearing her words through a haze of pain, a deep chill settled over me. I had thought that even if she didn't love me anymore, after all the years we'd spent together, we were a part of each other's history. But now, she was willing to leave me to die for Caleb's sake. The wicked live long lives. Huh? Her words echoed in my mind as I finally lost consciousness. Ethan, child, you're finally awake. I opened my eyes to see Mrs. Davis, her own eyes red and swollen from crying. Seeing me awake, she turned away to wipe a tear. It's good that you're awake. Unlike her calm demeanor, Sophia was furious, threatening to go straight to my grandfather, but Mrs. Davis quickly stopped her. Miss Sophia, don't. The general's old illness has been acting up, so he's moved to a private clinic to rest for a few days. Hearing that my grandfather was unwell, I struggled to sit up. A clinic? I have to go see him. I reached to pull the 4 from my hand. Mrs. Davis had to talk me down, promising I could go as soon as I was stronger. As I lay back down, my eyes caught a steaming bag on the nightstand. Who brought that? I asked, a hint of suspicion in my voice. Ginger sugar rice cakes from Eastwood Bakery. My favorite. Chloe used to bring them to me whenever she wanted to cheer me up. Following my gaze, Sophia snatched the bag and threw it into the trash can. Then she grabbed a bottle of hand sanitizer. Disgusting. I feel sorry for the trash can. Her antics made me smile. I already knew the answer, but I asked anyway. Was that from Chloe? My voice was still raspy from disuse. If it was her, she wasn't just here to drop off a peace offering. Don't even get me started, Sophia fumed. Where does Chloe get the nerve? She came here demanding that our families call off the engagement. Can you believe the arrogance? The bride hasn't even been announced, and she's already acting like it's all about her. Mrs. Davis tried to quiet her, but Sophia was on a roll. Honestly, Ethan, you should just pick Blair. She might be a handful, but she's a million times better than a hypocrite like Chloe. Or better yet, don't choose anyone. You could just hang out with me forever. Sophia's energy was infectious, a little sunbeam chasing away the gloom of the hospital room. Several times, I was on the verge of telling them I hadn't chosen Chloe, but something always seemed to interrupt me at the last second. So, I decided to take it as a sign from fate to wait. There was plenty of time. After I was discharged, I went straight to the clinic and spent the next few days by my grandfather's side. All the while, Sophia kept me updated. When she heard Chloe was playing with sparklers with Caleb, Sophia spent a fortune on a private fireworks display just for me. When Chloe bought Caleb a luxury car, Sophia had a dozen gold bars delivered to my house. When Chloe took Caleb to high-profile parties, Sophia would flood her Facebook with photos of us, set to sappy music and with gushing captions, making our friendship a trending topic on Twitter. Everyone knew Chloe was doing all this to humiliate me, and Sophia was right there by my side, metaphorically slapping her right back. Sophia's antics left me not knowing whether to laugh or cry, but amidst all the chaos, I felt the ice around my heart begin to melt. 3 days after my grandfather came home, we celebrated his 80th birthday. The Vances, the Waldorfs, the Millers, they all came. As was tradition, everyone gathered at the family's equestrian club. Hooves thundered, kicking up dust. The peaceful atmosphere shattered the moment Chloe arrived with Caleb in tow. The sunlight caught them, making their closeness painfully obvious. Mr. and Mrs. Vance's expressions turned cold. They both looked over at me, only to find me seemingly oblivious, laughing and talking with the cheerful girl beside me. Ethan, the birthday boy himself, spoke, and all eyes turned to him. I quickly answered, "Yes, Grandpa." He patted my hand. "Go on, all of you have fun. The horses are ready." He glanced around. "Where is the Waldorf girl?" Mr. Waldorf explained. "She's on her way, sir. She said she has a special gift for you this year, one she's sure you'll love." "Good, good." My grandfather beamed, his eyes crinkling. Blair has really grown up, entrusting Ethan to Grandpa. I quickly cut him off. "It's getting late, we should all get started." As we all mounted our horses, because of my grandfather's subtle arrangement, I found myself flanked by Chloe on one side and Sophie on the other. I don't know what Mrs. Vance said to Caleb, but he trailed behind us, his eyes red-rimmed like a rabbit's. Chloe glanced back at him, and when her eyes met mine again, they were glacial. The tension was so thick that even the usually oblivious Sophie noticed. She broke the silence. "Ethan, what was your grandpa about to say back there?" "You cut him off before I could hear." At this, Chloe's expression seemed to relax a little. In truth, she had heard my grandfather perfectly well. It sounded like he was about to entrust me to Blair, but she refused to believe it. If I hadn't chosen her, why had I been so hostile toward Caleb lately? We used to be best friends. At that thought, Chloe suddenly blurted out, "Stop it, Ethan. I'm not going to marry you." She said it for my benefit, but also for Caleb's. And just as she'd intended, the boy who had been sniffling a moment ago was now beaming through his tears, looking utterly moved. "Chloe, didn't you used to like Ethan the most?" Sophie whispered, trying to reason with her. "Besides, this is a contract signed by your grandfather." "Used to? Can you all stop talking about the past? Nobody lives in the past forever, right?" Chloe's voice rose sharply. "I love Caleb now. How many times do I have to say it?" Her words silenced the entire bustling stable. Before Sophie could even react, a spooked stallion bolted, charging straight for us. "Ethan!" Two voices screamed my name. Chloe and Sophie reacted instantly. One moved to intercept the horse, the other shielded me with her body. But just then, a panicked voice cried out from behind them, "Chloe!" Hearing Caleb's cry, Chloe abandoned her post without a second thought, running to him without even a backward glance at me. The new stallion was wild. It broke free completely and charged right at me. The thundering of its hooves hammered against my heart. I wanted to move, but my legs were frozen to the spot. A storm of dust and fury bore down on me, closing the distance in seconds. In that critical second, a flash of red entered my vision. An arm wrapped around my waist, and in one smooth motion, I was lifted and settled securely onto the back of another horse. I felt the warmth of a body pressed against my back. I turned my head and saw the last person I expected, Blair. I had no idea when she'd gotten back. She was dressed in sharp riding gear, a mischievous smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Ethan, it's been a few days. You've lost weight." Blair leaned in, whispering close to my ear. Her warm breath sent a shiver down my spine. The more I tried to pull away, the closer she leaned. "Hold on tight. I'll show you a good time." With that, she pulled the reins tight. The horse surged forward, and under her expert command, we began clearing one jump after another. The wind rushed past my ears, and it felt like freedom. My tense nerves finally relaxed. I spread my arms wide, letting the motion stretch through me. "Having fun." Blair's voice was carried away by the wind, making it hard to hear. I turned my head sharply, and my forehead brushed against her soft cheek. Before I could say anything, I saw a blush creep up her neck all the way to the tips of her ears. We circled the track 5 times before finally pulling to a stop. As we dismounted, we were met with Sophie's accusing glare. "Unbelievable. I'm over here wrestling a wild stallion, and you two are just off on a joyride." Blair ignored her, pulling a small, carved ring from her pocket and holding it out to me. "Brought this for you." The ring was still warm from her touch. My fingers trembled as I took it. I suddenly remembered my last life, how Blair, on her travels around the world, would always send me strange little gifts. Of all the trinkets she sent, most of them were rings, all different kinds. "Don't read too much into it," she said, using the same excuse she'd used for 2 lifetimes. "I just picked it up when I was getting something for your grandfather." She had used that line on me for 2 lifetimes. I looked up and met her clear, sparkling eyes, which were crinkled in a cunning smile. Yeah, it's great. Hey Blair, your face isn't red anymore. Sophie's words were like a switch. Blair's smile faltered, and a blush immediately spread across her cheeks again. Ooh, I think I just discovered a big secret, Sophie teased, laughing as Blair grabbed her and dragged her away. She covered Sophie's mouth and hustled her off. After they left, I went to find Sophia, but was stopped around a corner. I looked up to see Chloe blocking my path. My good mood soured. What do you want now? I snapped. Ethan, can you please help Caleb? After Mr. Vance heard what happened at the stables, he was furious. Mrs. Vance had immediately moved to sever all ties with Caleb's family, and no amount of begging from Chloe could change her mind. With nowhere else to turn, she had come to me. When she spoke again, her voice was tight with suppressed emotion. If you can convince them to let Caleb stay, I'll marry you. I promise. Understanding her offer, I found it so absurd that I actually started to applaud. And what if I say no? I watched her, my expression cold. Chloe's face hardened, her eyes turning sharp and cruel. She waved a hand, and a bodyguard brought over a carrier. Inside the square cage, a little black ball of fur was huddled in the corner, its green eyes wide with terror. If you don't agree, I'll have him taken care of. Patches was a stray I'd raised from a scrawny kitten into a fat, happy cat. I'd cared for him for 5 years. He was like a child to me. And now, Chloe was using his life to blackmail me into helping the man who had repeatedly tried to destroy me. After a long silence, I let out a soft, humorless laugh. My laughter seemed to startle her. Before she could speak, I began walking toward her. I stopped right in front of her, looking at her silently. The cold distance in my eyes made her flinch. I'll do it. Her brief flicker of fear was replaced by overwhelming relief. Hearing me agree to help Caleb, Chloe looked as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away without a second thought. The color drained from her face. Ethan, what's that supposed to mean? I'm only keeping Caleb around so I can take better care of you. Weren't you two best friends before? Chloe, who's the one who's really stuck in the past? I'll talk to them, I said, cutting her off. But you have to promise me 2 things. Do that, and I'll go plead your case to your parents right now. Anything, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. First, on my wedding day, no matter what happens, you have to be there. Hearing this, Chloe frowned. After a moment's hesitation, she gave a reluctant nod. And the second thing, we'll discuss that after the wedding. At my words, a spark of light returned to Chloe's dull eyes. After the wedding, those words solidified a certain hope that had taken root in her mind. Thanks to my intervention, Mr. and Mrs. Vance agreed to postpone their decision for a few days. After her parents left, Caleb collapsed into Chloe's arms like a deflated balloon. Chloe, thank God I have you. His fingers were ice cold, and she tenderly wrapped his hands in hers, trying to warm them. Hearing this, I couldn't help but scoff. I was the one who had pleaded his case, yet Caleb gave all the credit to Chloe, just as easily as Chloe had placed all the blame on me. Those two really were a perfect match. As Caleb spoke, tears streamed down his face. You're so good to me. I don't know how I can ever repay you. Chloe gently wiped his tears away, patting his back. Don't be silly. You saved my life. For that alone, I owe you everything. Hearing that, my heart skipped a beat. I couldn't help but wonder, if Chloe ever learned the truth, would she still be willing to go through hell for him? The ridiculous thought passed as quickly as it came. I had more important things to worry about. My wedding day was almost here. The day before the wedding, I was at home for my final suit fitting when an unexpected guest arrived. Mrs. Davis announced cheerfully, Ethan, Blair is here. Just as she said it, Blair pushed the door open and walked in. When she saw me, a flicker of admiration crossed her usually cool eyes, but she quickly composed herself. It's all right. I knew she was lying, so I wasn't offended. I think my suit would go well with your dress. At that, Blair just shrugged, feigning indifference. Can't be helped. Some of us are just born to look good in anything. I caught the flicker of disappointment in her eyes and leaned in closer. Why are you really here? You want to know who I chose, don't you? We were very close. Just as I was about to close the distance, Blair took a step back. To give you your wedding present. I told you I would, didn't I? An exquisite ring lay in the palm of her hand. Blair tried to smile, but she couldn't quite manage it. Here, Ethan, congratulations on your wedding. On the day of the wedding, the estate was decorated with flowers and ribbons. A crowd of reporters and onlookers had gathered at the gates of the old family mansion. I'd grown up in the public eye, and everyone was dying to know who I had chosen. It has to be the Vance girl. Ethan has been attached to her hip since they were kids. Oh, please, that was puppy love. My money's on the Waldorf girl. She's sharp and beautiful. Amidst the buzz of speculation, my grandfather walked me out, his eyes glistening with tears. The crowd erupted. The 3 potential brides were standing in a line in front of the wedding car. One looked worried, one looked nonchalant, and one was happily waving to the crowd. In the courtyard, the officiant solemnly unrolled the marriage certificate to make the announcement. I stepped forward. "Grandpa, allow me." I took the certificate and glanced at Blair. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second before we both looked away. As my gaze swept over the crowd, I was surprised to see Caleb standing there. His eyes were red, and his fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white, as if he was about to lunge at me. I took a deep breath and began to read. By the union of 2 families, a contract is made, to be forever bound in matrimony. The groom, Ethan Anderson, and the bride, Blair Waldorf. The crowd was silent for a beat, and then erupted into a deafening roar. Blair herself looked as if she'd been struck by lightning, frozen to the spot like a statue. I couldn't help but smile at her stunned expression. "Blair, how long are you going to keep your groom waiting?" The unexpected result sent a wave of murmurs through the crowd. After all, everyone knew that Blair and I had been at each other's throats since we were kids. Even Blair herself couldn't believe it. She asked again, "Ethan, are you sure you read that right?" The tremor in her voice betrayed her shock. I walked slowly toward her, took her trembling hand, and placed it over my heart, which was pounding just as hard as hers. "Blair, do you believe me now? How is this possible?" She snatched her hand back as if she'd been burned, her eyes wide with disbelief. She read the certificate over and over again. Seeing Blair's stunned face, Sophie threw an arm around her shoulders, laughing. "Congratulations, you two." In all the years I'd known her, Blair had never once said she loved me. We just fought and joked around like a comedy duo. But real love, like a cough, is impossible to hide. Just as I couldn't hide my love for Chloe, Blair couldn't hide her love for me. When you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see clearly. Only Sophie, as an outsider, could see the complex web of feelings between the 3 of us. "Are you an idiot?" Blair still looked dazed, and Sophie rolled her eyes at her friend's dumbfounded expression. It was the first time I'd ever seen her look so completely clueless. She was always so cool and composed. I never thought I'd see this side of her. "Is it that you don't want to marry me?" Suddenly, she grabbed my hand tightly. "Of course not, Ethan. I've dreamed of marrying you." Just then, Chloe, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Ethan, are you done with your little joke?" Her voice was low, simmering with an anger that was ready to boil over. Chloe stared at me, her eyes searching my face for any sign that this was all a prank. "Ethan, this isn't fair to Blair." Even now, Chloe was convinced that this whole marriage was just a childish game to make her jealous. The smile vanished from my face as I met her gaze head-on. The flutter I used to feel was long gone, replaced by a vast, cold indifference. "Chloe, tell me, how is this unfair to Blair?" "Because you've always been in love with me." My love for her had once been so all-consuming that she said it without a hint of doubt, as if it were an undeniable fact. Hearing her answer, I smiled. "Yes, I was in love with you." The hand in mine flinched, but I held on tighter. "But now I'm not." My light, casual tone was like a beautiful, cruel song in her ears. Chloe's heart ached, but her expression remained unchanged. Just as she was about to speak again, a soft hand touched her arm. "Ethan, congratulations to you and Blair. I wish you a happy marriage." Caleb was trying to look somber, but he couldn't suppress the triumphant smirk playing on his lips. With me out of the way, there was nothing stopping him and Chloe from being together. So what if her parents didn't approve? As long as he had Chloe's heart, her parents would eventually have to give in. At that thought, a flash of blatant provocation crossed Caleb's usually gentle face. "Thanks." I smiled politely, but that smile was a dagger twisting in Chloe's heart. Just moments before, she had been desperate for me to let her go. My grandfather's cane tapped the ground with a dull thud. "All right, Ethan, Blair," my grandfather said, his eyes welling with tears. "It's time to go. Don't be late." I turned to him, my own eyes red. The stern face of my childhood had softened with age, becoming gentle and kind. "Grandpa, you can trust me with Ethan," Blair said, her voice clear and steady, though the rapid rise and fall of her chest betrayed her nerves. Her feigned composure made me laugh through my tears. "That's right, Grandpa. And if she ever mistreats me, I'll bring her right back here so you can straighten her out for me." Blair just smiled at my threat, her gaze firm and unwavering. That day will never come. The wedding car drove off, shrinking into a tiny black in the distance. Chloe stood frozen in place, her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. "Ethan, don't you come crying back to me," she muttered, each word laced with a fiery rage. Her voice was a low, furious hiss. Back at her own home, Chloe felt a profound emptiness. Before today, she had been so certain that she loved Caleb. In her last life, she had given up everything, even her own identity, to be with him. And now, she had gotten what she wanted without having to pay that terrible price. So why wasn't she happy? She sat alone in her room for a long time, until Caleb's cheerful voice broke the silence. "Chloe, now that Ethan's settled, we should get married too." In the long, heavy silence that followed, they both sensed that something between them was quietly dying. When she didn't respond, Caleb sat at the foot of the bed, crossing his arms in a mock pout. "What's wrong? You're not still thinking about Ethan, are you?" His tone was probing, fishing for a denial, but instead, he saw her lower her head, a distant look in her eyes. Caleb couldn't accept her silence. He pulled up his sleeve, revealing the scar on his arm. "Have you forgotten? I'm the one who saved you from that fire. You said you would take care of me." His voice cracked, the sound echoing in the cold, quiet room. Her thoughts in turmoil, Chloe acted on instinct, pulling him into an embrace and soothing him softly. "Caleb, I'll marry you." Caleb nodded, his face lighting up with joy, completely missing the way the smile vanished from Chloe's face as soon as it appeared. She agreed, but she made no move to actually plan a wedding. "Even though I was married, Chloe still believed I would come back to her. In our last life, my love for her had been all-consuming, a fact known to everyone. How could a love that deep simply vanish? So what if I had married Blair? It was just another tactic to win her back, just like all the other times before. Only this time, after 2 weeks of waiting, the news she received wasn't of me begging for her back, but of my wife and I moving to Germany. Chloe couldn't wait any longer. Early on the third day, she showed up at my door, her face a cold mask. "Ethan, I already gave you a chance. If you leave now, it won't be so easy to come back next time." Her words floored me. How could anyone be so arrogant? I was married, yet she was still convinced I would come crawling back to her. What would it take to make her understand that I was truly, completely over her? I raised an eyebrow, about to let her have it, when Blair suddenly appeared behind me. She wrapped one arm around my waist and put her other hand between Chloe and me, pushing her back. "You can talk from over there. No need to get so close." Her tone was casual, but it was dripping with jealousy. Chloe's eyes dropped to the arm wrapped around my waist, and her already sour expression turned thunderous. "Blair, this is between Ethan and me. It has nothing to do with you." She tried to draw a line in the sand, but Blair stepped right over it. "How is it none of my business? Ethan and I are legally married. We're a team." Blair was smiling, but her words were like daggers, and Chloe's confidence visibly crumbled. Chloe's face was grim. She looked past Blair, her eyes fixed on me. "Ethan, come with me, please. I don't care that you're married. We can go back to how things were." For someone as proud as her to say something so desperate was truly a sight to behold. But I was done being merciful. "How things were? You mean how they were before?" I ticked off the memories on my fingers. "You mean when you humiliated me over and over for Caleb? Or when you stood against me, leaving me to drown in despair?" With every word, Chloe's face grew paler. The shock in her eyes seemed genuine, as if she had never realized how much pain she had caused me. Blair's expression was even darker. She couldn't believe I had endured so much in the 2 months she'd been gone. The arm around my waist tightened. I could feel her seething. She looked ready to fight, but I held her back. "So, Chloe, is that really the past you want to go back to?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. An apology hovered on her tongue, but she couldn't seem to force it out. "Ethan, Before Chloe could finish, the sharp sound of a slap cut her off. She looked up, stunned, and saw my eyes blazing with a cold, final anger. "Are you happy now? I was in love with you, but that doesn't give you the right to trample all over my feelings. Isn't Caleb your one true love? So what are you doing here? What's the matter? Is your true love really that cheap?" Chloe stood there, stunned, her body trembling. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with unshed tears. "You don't need to worry about Caleb and me. Our wedding is in 3 days. I just came to let you know." With that, Chloe turned and left without another word. The next 3 days flew by. Chloe was busy with wedding preparations. In contrast, Blair and I were having the time of our lives. With just the two of us in the big house, we enjoyed a rare stretch of leisure, spending our days eating, sleeping, and just having fun. The night before Chloe's wedding, Blair whispered to me, "Ethan, Do you really have to go to her wedding? I sighed. Ever since we got married, Blair had been a walking cloud of jealousy. It didn't matter if it was a pretty girl I glanced at or a stranger asking for directions. She'd get possessive, and Chloe was in a league of her own. I rolled over to face her. The room was dark, and in the silence, the sound of our heartbeats seemed to grow louder. After a long moment, I finally said, "Of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I?" My casual tone only earned me more of her sarcastic jealousy. "Oh, right. After all, she is the woman you loved for all those years." With that, she rolled over, turning her back to me. I decided to tease her a little. I moved closer, resting my chin in the crook of her neck. "So, I'm really going?" She didn't respond, but when I made a move to get up, she wrapped her arms around me, holding me tight. "Ethan, don't go." Her husky voice held a hint of a plea. My heart melted. I squeezed the arm around my chest. "Blair, if I had never asked, would you have ever told me you loved me?" In my last life after I married Chloe, Blair moved to Germany. We lost touch, but every year, I would still receive gifts from her, sent from all over the world. After she died, I received one last package from her. Inside a small, square box were hundreds of love letters that had crossed oceans to finally tell a story she had never spoken aloud. The woman behind me went still, her breathing so quiet it was almost silent. After a long moment, I heard her reply, her voice laced with self-deprecation. "What good would it have done? My loving you had nothing to do with you." I chuckled. "So your way of showing you love someone is to bully them relentlessly?" At that, Blair finally let her guard down, and the story of the past few years came tumbling out. "Ethan, you have to forgive me. If I didn't act that way, you never would have even looked at me. Back then, all you could see was Chloe. What was so great about her? Anyway, I've been trying to figure it out for years." She sounded like a pouting child who had been deeply wronged. I had given up all hope. I thought I would just live out my life with my memories. "I never ever thought you would choose me." When I heard the news, I felt like I'd won the lottery. Listening to her, I couldn't help but smile. Blair had always been good to me in her own way. All our little fights were her way of pulling me out of my own head, of keeping me from drowning in my own misery. She always knew how to read my moods and find a way to make me smile. It's a shame that in my last life, I was so lost in my grief over Chloe's death that I never saw what was right in front of me until after Blair was gone. Thankfully, fate was kind enough to give me a second chance. "Blair, I'm not in love with Chloe anymore. I mean it. The only reason I'm going to her wedding is for the entertainment. Besides, who doesn't love a good drama? As for marrying you, at first it was a shock, but somewhere along the way I really fell in love with you. I love that stubborn cowlick you have. I love how jealous you get. I love the way your eyes follow me around the room, and I love the person I am when I'm with you." My voice was quiet, but it sent a tremor through Blair. She had never imagined she would hear those words from me. From the moment she fell in love with me, her world had revolved around me. My laughter, my sorrow, she wanted all of it for herself. But back then, I only had eyes for Chloe. There's no logic to love. She loved me and I loved Chloe. But fate has a funny way of turning things on their head. Every day since we'd been married, Blair felt like she was living in a dream, one so perfect it couldn't possibly be real. Now, hearing my confession, she felt like she was walking on air. As if to check if she was dreaming, Blair pinched herself hard. It hurt, but her heart felt as sweet as honey. With our feelings finally out in the open, Blair was in high spirits as we set off for the wedding. The wedding was a rushed affair, thrown together at the last minute. Because of Chloe's insistence, both Mr. and Mrs. Vance looked grim. Caleb was nominally a family friend of the Vances, but in reality, he was his father's illegitimate son. After his mother died, marrying into the Vance family was a major step up for him. Because of this, his normally cold stepmother had uncharacteristically doubled the dowry, and even his father, who usually ignored him, was boasting proudly, "Our Caleb is a fortunate boy." Seeing Chloe arrive, Caleb's stepmother shot him a look before turning to her with a saccharine smile. "You're so early. We weren't expecting you yet." "What do you know?" his father interjected. "A day apart feels like an eternity." Chloe couldn't wait to see her beloved Caleb. "Yes," Chloe replied distractedly, her eyes scanning the crowd. Her mind was elsewhere, wondering if I would show up. If I didn't, she pushed the thought away. After the ceremony, amidst a flurry of balloons, streamers, and laughter, Caleb got into the wedding car. The car sped down the road, the scenery blurring past the window. Chloe was lost in thought the entire ride, ignoring Caleb's attempts to get her attention. Chloe walked straight toward me, completely forgetting the groom trailing behind her. "Ethan, you see? I did what I said I would. The wedding is done. You're too late. She assumed I was there to try and call off the wedding, and her heart pounded with a wild, hopeful excitement. Every fiber of her being screamed that if I would just give in, just this once, she would come running back to me. Just give in, she thought. I turned to her, a polite smile on my face, but my words sent a chill through her. Chloe, what are you talking about? I was invited to your wedding. I'm not here to object. Blair suddenly appeared, linking her arm through mine. Chloe, crashing weddings is something that only happens in the movies. She gave a roguish grin. Congratulations. I wish you and Mr. Hayes a long and happy life together. Caleb, who had been left behind, finally caught up, taking Chloe's arm in a possessive grip. Ethan, Chloe and I are married now. Can't you just give up? His voice was loud enough to draw the attention of the nearby guests. You're married yourself, so why are you still harassing Chloe? Just because you two had some childhood arrangement, does that give you the right to cheat on your wife? He said, tears welling up in his eyes. Suddenly, all eyes were on me, a mixture of confusion and disapproval. Realizing he had the crowd's sympathy, Caleb looked triumphant, a smug satisfaction shining through his tear-filled eyes. He expected me to be humiliated, to storm out in a fit of rage. Instead, I just raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Caleb, before you pass judgment on me, why don't you tell everyone how you got that scar on your arm? I had said it casually, but my words seemed to flip a switch in Chloe. If it weren't for that fire, Caleb would never have been her hero, and none of this would have happened. After 2 lifetimes, Chloe was only just now realizing that the person she had truly wanted had been hers from the very beginning. But she wasn't about to lose face in front of Blair. She nudged Caleb's arm, prompting him. Caleb, go on, tell everyone. She expected him to readily agree, but instead, a strange, panicked expression crossed his face. Mr. and Mrs. Vance frowned as well. He was acting so small-minded. Mrs. Vance, who had been against the marriage from the start, was now fuming. Caleb knew that if he stayed silent, things would only get worse. He clenched his fists, trying to control the tremor in his voice. I got this scar when I saved Chloe from the fire. Under the crystal chandeliers, the puckered scar suddenly seemed heroic, and a wave of respect washed over the guests. So that's the story. Miss Vance will have to spend a lifetime repaying that debt. The groom looks so frail, but he's a true hero, risking his life to save the woman he loves. Hearing his answer, Chloe's expression softened. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for everything. She said the words with feeling, but inside, she felt nothing. Just as Caleb thought he was in the clear, a mocking laugh cut through the air. Mr. Hayes, you really are a creature of habit, a pathological liar through and through. Caleb turned to see Sophia standing there, a playful smirk on her face. Sophia, fashionably late, put 2 fingers to her lips and whistled. On the large screen behind the couple, a video began to play. The video showed a slim figure carrying a girl on his back, running out of a burning building. The video ended on a freeze frame of my face, flushed red from the flames. So, Mr. Hayes? Sophia said, playfully twirling a USB drive on her finger. Are you happy with my wedding gift? She winked. The color drained from Chloe's face. She suppressed her rage and turned to Caleb. Caleb, what is this? Caleb stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. His silence was a clearer answer than any words could have been. In her desperation to marry Caleb, Chloe had made a promise to her parents. No matter what happened, she would deal with the consequences herself. So now, even in this disastrous situation, she had no choice but to swallow her pride and see it through. After the last of the guests had left, Chloe could no longer contain herself. She walked straight toward me. It was me. The one who saved her from the fire was me. Her mind was a chaotic mess. She walked in a daze, not even noticing when Caleb grabbed her arm. Chloe, please let me explain, Caleb begged, trying to win her back. I only lied because I love you so much. Please, just forgive me this once. But the woman he was pleading with seemed like a stranger, the softness in her eyes completely gone. Seeing me about to leave, Chloe lost all composure, screaming my name like a madwoman. Ethan, it was you. You were the one who saved me. All these years, I've been deceived by Caleb. Now that the truth is out, I see that it's always been you. The sudden outburst caused the remaining staff and passers-by to stop and stare. Caleb lay on the floor in a pathetic heap, grinding his teeth in fury. This was the wedding he had dreamed of a million times, and it had been utterly destroyed. Ignoring the stares, Caleb scrambled to his feet and grabbed Chloe's arm. Chloe, I'm sorry, please, just forgive me this once. Can we go back to how things were? His eyes were red, and in the past, the sight of his tears had always been her undoing. But now, it was as if all her love had vanished in an instant, replaced by a cold, hard disgust. "Caleb, you're a liar. If it weren't for you, Ethan and I would never have been torn apart. In this life and the last, Caleb was the reason Chloe and I were driven apart. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have made so many mistakes." The realization that she had been lied to for so long ignited a furious rage within her. The crowd of onlookers was growing, and the scene was descending into chaos. Caleb's family was mortified, and Mr. Vance was livid. "Chloe, Ethan is married. What is the meaning of this spectacle? Didn't I tell you that you would have to live with the consequences of your own actions?" But no matter what her father said, Chloe wasn't listening. She shoved Caleb aside and stumbled in front of my car, blocking the way. "Ethan, please don't go. I know you still love me. I love you too. Can we please get back together?" Hearing her words, I could only laugh. Sophia, in the passenger seat, had a much stronger reaction. She rolled down the window and yelled, "Vance, have you no shame? Who do you think you are? Get out of the way." But no matter what Sophia said, Chloe wouldn't give up. She moved to my window, making it clear she wasn't leaving until I spoke to her. "Ethan, I was wrong. Please, can you forgive me?" It was the first time she had ever admitted she was wrong to me. The first time in 2 lifetimes. The window rolled down. I met her pleading eyes, which were overflowing with a guilt that failed to move me in the slightest. I felt no sadness, no anger, no joy. It was only in that moment that I truly realized I was finally, completely over Chloe, the woman who had consumed my entire youth. A sense of peace washed over me. When I spoke again, my voice was gentle the way it used to be. "Chloe, some mistakes can't be undone. The love I had for you was real, but the fact that it's gone now is also real. We both need to move on." In contrast to my calm, Chloe looked as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. How could a person change so fast? In our last life, I had waited 10 years for her. This time, after a few small misunderstandings, how could I have just given up on her? Chloe started to say something else, but Blair suddenly appeared at her side, pulling her away firmly. "Chloe, you've got the wrong man. Your groom is over there." Following her pointed finger, Chloe saw Caleb, surrounded by a hostile crowd, looking utterly pathetic. But she couldn't bring herself to care. The look she gave him was one of pure, undisguised rage. If it weren't for Caleb, she and I would never have ended up like this. Seeing right through her, Blair let out a contemptuous laugh. She had never liked Chloe. Before, it had been out of jealousy. Now, it was because of her fickle, heartless nature. For the sake of their shared childhood, Blair decided to grant her one last shred of dignity. "Chloe, you heard what Ethan said. Let's all just go our separate ways. Don't let this ugly mess ruin what good memories we have left." With that, she got into the car and we drove away. And Chloe, under pressure from her parents, took Caleb home. In their last life, Chloe and Caleb had been deeply in love. She had faked her own death after marrying me, changing her identity to run away with him. Even after being reborn, for a long time, Chloe had found herself missing her life with Caleb. But now that they were finally, officially together, all she could think about was the man she had spent her last life trying so desperately to escape. She remembered the fire. Every time she had brought it up, Caleb had been evasive. Looking back now, all the signs were there. His back had been so warm, so strong. He had been willing to die for her. How could a love that deep just disappear? At that thought, Chloe knew she had to find me. Just as she was about to leave the room, Caleb wrapped his arms around her from behind, his voice choked with tears. "Chloe, I know it's all my fault, but today is our wedding day. I'm not asking you to love me, just pity me." Caleb's life in his own family had been difficult. He had learned from a young age that if you want something, you have to fight for it. So even now, knowing that Chloe was disgusted with him, he wasn't ready to give up on her, or more accurately, on himself. His tears now weren't from sadness, but from a calculated display of vulnerability. His wide, tear-filled eyes, his soft lips, his air of fragile helplessness. It was all a fatal combination for Chloe. If that was the part she wanted him to play, he would play it. Seeing her hesitate, seeing her stop threatening to leave, Caleb knew he still had a chance. He stemmed his tears and boldly pressed his lips to hers. "Chloe, I know you can't get over Ethan, but he's married now. You can't rush things. Just stay with me tonight." His pitiful act both disgusted her and reminded her, against her will, of his soft, pliant nature in their last life. "Fine," she said. "I'll stay. For one last night." The next morning, Chloe woke with a start. She got up and dressed without a word, all the tenderness of the previous night gone. Caleb, I'm saying this one last time. My heart belongs to Ethan. Don't delude yourself into thinking otherwise. By the time Chloe got to my house, Blair and I were already gone. The huge mansion was empty. After making some inquiries, she learned that right after the wedding, we had left on a trip with our friends. Until that moment, Chloe had clung to the fantasy that even though she had married another man, I would be secretly heartbroken. On her way over, she had even bought a bouquet of sunflowers, a whole speech prepared in her head. But I hadn't even spared her a second thought. I had just gone on vacation with my new wife. A trip, a move to another country. Was it really impossible to win me back? Chloe frowned, her thoughts interrupted by the appearance of a familiar figure. The woman clearly recognized her too. She put down her watering can and walked over. "Miss Vance," Mrs. Davis said, her tone frosty. "It's the day after your wedding. Shouldn't you be with your new husband?" Mrs. Davis had long since run out of patience for Chloe. She had trampled all over Ethan's heart for that Caleb boy. And now that everyone had moved on, here she was again. It was disgusting. Faced with the housekeeper's hostility, Chloe swallowed her anger and forced herself to ask, "Mrs. Davis, where did Ethan and his wife go? I need to talk to them about something." "What business?" "You can tell me. Mr. Ethan is very dear to me, and I won't have his ears sullied with filth." Her pride stung. Chloe couldn't stop the words from tumbling out. "Mrs. Davis, I know I'm not blameless in what happened between Ethan and me, but is he completely innocent? If he hadn't repeatedly hurt Caleb, would I have been pushed so far away? Since we're both at fault, why can't we both just take a step back and forgive and forget?" Chloe had once again twisted the narrative to fit her own logic, so lost in her own self-justification that she didn't even notice the look on Mrs. Davis's face. Mrs. Davis's face was pale with fury, her voice like ice. "I raised that boy. Do you think I don't know his character? He wouldn't hurt a fly, let alone a person. You're the one who's blind and heartless, and you dare to slander him? Mr. Ethan knew you'd come back. He left a letter for you. Take it and get out." Mrs. Davis tossed the envelope at her feet and slammed the gate shut. Chloe ignored the insult, bending down to pick up the envelope, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. He couldn't forget her after all. This letter was the proof. She tore open the envelope with trembling, hopeful fingers, but the words inside sent her heart crashing back into the abyss. "Chloe, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Our story was a long one, long enough to span 2 lifetimes. But this is where it ends. Remember that second promise you made me? I've decided what I want. I want us to leave each other alone, to stop this endless cycle, and to go our separate ways. Ethan." Chloe stared at the letter in disbelief, reading it over and over again, unable to accept the terrible truth it confirmed. I had been reborn, too. With that final, crucial piece of the puzzle in place, everything suddenly made sense. No wonder I hadn't chosen her. No wonder I could marry Blair with a clear conscience. I knew everything. I had been so completely broken by her that I had run headfirst into a new life, one that didn't include her. In our shared story, she was the only one still clinging to a fantasy. The realization made her legs go weak. She stumbled backward, barely managing to catch her balance. How could this be happening? How could fate be so cruel? In her last life, she had lost everything, living a life built on a lie. And in this life, when she could finally see the truth, she could only watch as everything that had once been hers was slowly, painfully stripped away. She walked home in a daze, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. For some reason, Mrs. Davis's words came back to her. She had known Ethan her whole life. Didn't she know his character? Would he really hire people to hurt Caleb not once but twice? Chloe had once trusted Caleb completely. That unwavering trust had shattered the moment she learned of his first lie. And once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. Chloe had her assistant investigate the incidents. As she scrolled through her phone, a message from Blair popped up, contained both text and video files. The first line read, "Chloe, you and Caleb really are a perfect match. Both of you are equally manipulative and disgusting." Ignoring Blair's insults, Chloe eagerly opened the files, desperate for the truth. As she scrolled, she saw a clearly documented list of crimes. The driver in Caleb's accident had been paid off by Caleb himself. He had not only staged his own accident, but had also arranged the one that nearly killed me. Even the spooked stallion at the stables had been his doing. The further she read, the paler Chloe's face became. She had hurt me, again and again, for this manipulative monster. She had even threatened my cat's life to protect him. She had been an absolute fool. No wonder I had grown so distant, so cold toward her. I had been so heartbroken that I had simply gone numb. The truth left Chloe looking hollow, like a puppet with its strings cut. When Caleb saw her, he threw himself into her arms, chirping happily like a little bird. Chloe, I knew you couldn't bear to leave me. He looked up at her, his eyes shining. I've thought about it. It's okay if you still love Ethan. I don't need anything, as long as I can be with you. He spoke with an air of magnanimity, but his red-rimmed eyes betrayed his true feelings of hurt. His lip trembled, and a tear rolled down his cheek. But Chloe felt nothing, only a profound, bone-deep cold. She shoved him away, her eyes blazing with a furious crimson light. Caleb, you bastard! How dare you lie to me, over and over again? A monster like you doesn't deserve to set foot in this house. Caleb stared in disbelief. Everything had been fine just yesterday. How could things have changed so drastically overnight? A chill ran down his spine. He didn't know what had happened, but his first instinct was to apologize. Chloe, I'm sorry. Chloe tilted his chin up, her voice dangerously calm. Oh? And what, exactly, are you sorry for? A hot tear fell onto her hand. Caleb whispered timidly, I'm sorry, for ever thinking I could compare to Ethan. Is that all? Her low voice was like a devil's whisper. Her grip tightened. Caleb tried to pull away, but she held him fast. There's nothing else. Chloe, you know me? Under Caleb's stunned gaze, Chloe began to speak, her voice as cold as ice. Your car accident. Ethan's car accident. The horse at the stables. Do I need to go on? Her voice grew louder with each accusation. She flung his hand away. Thrown off balance, Caleb stumbled and fell to the floor. Chloe, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, he cried, tears streaming down his face. But I only did it because I love you. His tearful pleas earned him no sympathy. In fact, they only seemed to fuel Chloe's rage. Love me? You love me, so you lie to me? Caleb, you are nothing but a liar. If it weren't for you, Ethan and I would never have fallen apart. I want a divorce. I never want to see you again. At the word divorce, Caleb truly began to panic. He had never wanted Chloe herself, only the power and prestige of the Vance family that came with her. The scandal from the wedding was still fresh. If news of a divorce got out now, he would be ruined. Not to mention his father, who had been so pleased with the match. The thought of what awaited him at home made Caleb shudder. No, Chloe, you can't do this to me. He sobbed hysterically, a pathetic mess of tears and snot. Chloe, please, don't divorce me. You love Ethan, right? I'll go to him, I'll explain everything, I'll apologize. I'll do anything you want, just please, don't divorce me. He had risked everything to marry her. After everything he had done, how could it all end like this? But Chloe's mind was made up. The same fierce devotion she had once shown him was now replaced by an equally fierce disgust. She couldn't stand to be in the same room with him for another second. The more she learned the truth, the more she found herself thinking of me. My voice, my embrace, all the good things she had thrown away. She felt an overwhelming urge to hold me, to have me back. The letter in her pocket suddenly felt like it was burning a hole through to her skin, a dull ache spreading through her chest. Go our separate ways? But Ethan, how could she ever be okay in a world without me? She would apologize, she would explain. No matter how cruel I was, she would wait patiently for the day I finally came back to her. Realizing that nothing he said would work, Caleb closed his eyes in despair. He wiped his tears, his voice trembling. Chloe, if you insist on this divorce, then I'll just die. He walked to the balcony railing, a last desperate gamble, but the contemptuous smirk on Chloe's face was like a physical blow. This wasn't the first time Caleb had threatened suicide. He had serious mental health issues, and every time he had a crisis, she had been there, taking him to doctors, comforting him, patiently guiding him back from the brink. So her feelings for him hadn't been entirely fake. How could all those good memories have been a lie? If she hadn't loved him to her very core, how could she have given up everything to be with him? And that was what made his betrayal all the more unforgivable. How could he have used such despicable tactics to blind her? How could he have accepted her love, knowing it was all built on a lie? In despair, Caleb climbed over the railing. There was a sickening thud, and a spiderweb of crimson spread out on the pavement below. That was the scene that greeted Mr. and Mrs. Vance when they returned home. With her parents' intervention, Caleb was rushed to the hospital, and Chloe's plans for a quick divorce were put on hold. No matter how much they disliked him, he was now their son-in-law. The scandal at the wedding had been humiliating enough. A divorce so soon after would completely destroy the family's reputation. Under her parents' orders, Chloe was forced to stay by Caleb's side. It was partly to manage Caleb's fragile emotional state, but mostly to punish Chloe for her willfulness. No matter how much she hated it, Chloe had no choice but to obey her parents, staying by Caleb's hospital bed day and night. She was physically in the hospital, but in her mind, she was in Colorado. From Sophia's latest Twitter posts, she knew where we had gone. Hiking, sightseeing, a group of friends having the time of their lives. It was a beautiful, happy scene, one that should have included her. But now everything was ruined. With new injuries piled on top of old ones, Caleb remained unconscious for 2 days. When he finally woke up, the first thing he saw was Chloe, sitting by his bed, her face a blank mask. He managed a weak smile. "Chloe, have you been here this whole time? Your eyes are all red." He was lost in his own fantasy, completely missing the storm brewing in her eyes. During his 2 days in a coma, Caleb hadn't been completely unaware. He could still hear the faint sounds of Mr. and Mrs. Vance's angry voices. He couldn't make out the words, but he was confident that, when it came down to it, they would side with him. After all, a life was at stake. "I'll be better soon," he said, "and then we can go home together." Chloe said nothing, which Caleb took as a silent agreement to move on. After all, I was married now, and from the looks of it, happily so. In that case, what good would it do for Chloe to pine after me? She could only watch from a distance. Caleb struggled to sit up, wrapping his arms around Chloe's waist. "Chloe," he mumbled, "stay with me. I'll give you all the love I have." But what he didn't expect was for Chloe to violently shove him away. "I've already had my assistant draw up the divorce papers. Don't worry, it won't be made public, and the Vance family will provide you with a generous settlement. We can part amicably." With every word Chloe spoke, the color drained further from Caleb's face. By the time she finished, his lips were completely bloodless. "Chloe," Caleb lowered his head, his voice trembling. "Weren't we happy in our last life? Why did you change when we got a second chance?" Chloe froze for a second, then the realization hit her. He remembered their past life, too. She didn't know how, and she didn't care. At this point, there was nothing left to hide. Chloe decided to lay it all on the table. "It's precisely because we were happy in our last life that your betrayal is so much worse now that I know the truth. If you hadn't lied, I never would have turned away from Ethan. If it weren't for you, Ethan and I would have grown old together, happy for the rest of our lives." After his fall, Caleb had unexpectedly remembered everything from his past life. That world had been so perfect for him. The woman I loved and lost had fallen right into his arms. Chloe had cherished him for 10 years. They'd even had a second wedding, a sweet, happy life. In this life, with me out of the way, he was her rightful husband. How could he possibly accept being thrown away? Armed with the memories of their past, Caleb knew she wasn't entirely immune to him. He lunged for her again. "Chloe, don't you see your own heart? You don't love Ethan. You love the idea of the man who saved you from the fire. That person could have been me, it could have been anyone. Weren't we happy together? Search your heart and tell me you felt nothing real for me." Chloe shoved him away without a second's hesitation. "I did once, but not anymore," she continued, her voice cold and clear. "Caleb, I truly did love you. I hurt Ethan and gave up everything to be with you. And how did you repay me? With lies upon lies. Even the day we met was a carefully constructed trap. To climb the social ladder, is there anything you wouldn't do?" The more she listed his sins, the more she couldn't stop thinking of me. My love for her had always been genuine, unconditional. Looking back, Mrs. Davis had been right all along. She had been blind, foolishly trusting a villain and leading herself down this disastrous path. Thinking of me, a soft, sad smile touched Chloe's lips. "I did love you, but I love Ethan more." Hearing this, Caleb, who had been playing the victim, suddenly let out a harsh, sneering laugh, tears of mirth streaming down his face. "If you don't love me, just say it. Why invent these pathetic excuses to justify yourself? You're so hypocritical, so selfish." Caleb clenched his fists, all pretense of gentleness gone. "Chloe, stop pretending you're some kind of saint. I lied to you, yes, but besides the fire, were you not my willing accomplice in everything else? If you weren't so desperate and lonely, would I have ever had a chance? Saying you love Ethan more only means you want what you can't have. Gave up everything for me. How can you even say that with a straight face?" His words hit their mark. The color drained from Chloe's face. "Caleb, what are you talking about?" Veins stood out on her arms, and her chest heaved. For a split second, she couldn't meet his dull, empty eyes. Caleb stared her down, his gaze unwavering as hers faltered. "What, did I strike a nerve? Chloe, you know better than anyone whether I'm lying or not." As much as she hated to admit it, Chloe knew he was right. He had dragged all the ugly, hidden parts of her out into the harsh light of day. In their last life, after she ran away with him, they'd had a brief, happy period. But Chloe had also lost her fortune and status. Poverty grinds you down, and that initial sweetness had long since been eroded by the harsh realities of their life. She had thought about going back, but she knew her father's temper. He would never forgive her for the scandal she had caused. To survive, Chloe had worked every kind of job imaginable. Life was hard, but Caleb's gentle affection made it bearable. Until, 10 years later, she ran into me on the street. I was there on vacation. I wasn't alone. There was a woman by my side. He was well-dressed. She was elegant and charming. Standing together in the sunlight, they looked like a perfect couple. To this day, Chloe couldn't quite describe the feeling of that moment, a bitter mix of excitement and resentment. The longer she was away from me, the more she missed me. When she later found out I had never remarried, she had actually cried. I really couldn't get over her, she had thought. They were childhood sweethearts, inseparable. A deep love with a shallow fate. Chloe had genuinely wished me happiness with someone else, but seeing it with her own eyes was unbearable. The accident happened so fast. By the time I realized what was happening, she had already pushed me out of the way, taking the impact herself. She lay in a pool of blood, dying, but still defiant. Ethan, I know I shouldn't have deceived you, but Caleb and I are truly in love. If you get another chance, please don't choose me again. If she had known then what she knew now, she would have pulled me into her arms and told me how much she'd missed me, instead of pushing me away out of pride. When she realized she had been reborn, Chloe was ecstatic. She wanted to find me, but she couldn't stop thinking about the woman she'd seen by my side. To cope with that jealousy, she had indulged Caleb again and again. It was as if seeing me suffer was the only thing that allowed her to breathe. But she never imagined how one wrong step would lead to so many more. His lies made her hate Caleb. Her pride made her lose me. Torn apart by two different kinds of pain, Chloe avoided Caleb's gaze and stormed out. A week later, when Caleb was discharged from the hospital, Chloe presented him with divorce papers. Caleb, still weak from his injuries, off his medication, and barely eating, fainted from the shock. He thought his pathetic state might awaken some shred of pity in her. But he forgot that when someone stops loving you, you could die at their feet and they wouldn't feel a thing. After a few more failed attempts at manipulation, Caleb finally croaked, "I'll sign." As soon as he said it, a maid went to inform Chloe, who appeared almost instantly with her lawyer, as if she'd been waiting just outside the door. As the door opened, Caleb used the last of his strength to shove the architect of his ruin to the floor. The attack was sudden and unexpected. Seeing Chloe on the ground, convulsing, Caleb's lips twisted into the first genuine smile he'd had in days. The farce ended with Chloe in an ambulance and Caleb in a police car. When Chloe opened her eyes again, 2 more days had passed. Her head was wrapped in bandages, and it throbbed with a tearing pain. The nurse changing her dressing side in relief. "Miss Vance, you're finally awake. I'll go get the doctor." As the nurse hurried out, Chloe shifted and realized her left leg was in a heavy cast. Her assistant arrived to give a report, but she ignored him, grabbing his sleeve desperately. "Has Ethan left yet? By my calculations, my permanent residency visa for Germany should have come through." While she was unconscious, Chloe had the same dream over and over. It was our wedding. I was in my tuxedo, smiling brightly. Our friends and family surrounded us, their applause thundering in her ears. Amidst the chorus of congratulations, Chloe walked with a steady, determined pace toward her groom. But in the next instant, she realized with a jolt of horror that with every step she took forward, I took a step back. The distance between us grew, until I vanished completely. At a time like this, such a dream could not be a good omen. Her assistant didn't have to say a word. His silence was answer enough. "Miss Vance, about this month's quarterly reports." "Ma'am, the doctor said you can't get out of bed." Hearing that I was leaving, Chloe ignored everything else, dragging her broken leg all the way to my house. She stood at the gate, watching Blair and me together, so easy and natural, and a bitter ache spread through her chest. That place by my side had once been hers. If she hadn't made so many mistakes, how could Blair have ever had the chance to slip in? The more she thought, the angrier she became. She lunged forward, wanting to tear us apart, forgetting her injured leg. She collapsed to the ground in a pathetic heap. The dull thud of her fall immediately caught our attention. Seeing who it was, Blair exploded with rage, her fists clenched. "Chloe, you have the nerve to show your face here." While gathering evidence against Caleb, Blair had learned just how much I had suffered in the 2 months she was gone. I tried to tell her it was all in the past, but Blair couldn't let it go. She wasn't the forgive and forget type. She wanted payback. Blair's eyes were bloodshot as she hauled Chloe up by the collar. Chloe, how could you? If anything had happened to Ethan, how many lives would it take to pay for it? Chloe didn't fight back. She just let Blair vent her fury. This was a debt she owed me, and now it was being paid. Chloe's voice was a hoarse whisper. Blair, can you please give Ethan back to me? Just as Blair's fist was about to fly again, I told her to go inside. After I promised her, again and again, that I would be fine, the furious woman reluctantly backed away. Ethan, I knew you couldn't bear to see me hurt. Chloe was a complete mess, her face already swelling. Ethan, I've divorced Caleb. I'm free now. You should divorce Blair. Then we can be together. Ethan, I know I made so many mistakes, but please, just give me one more chance. I'll change, I promise. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just trust me one more time. She struggled to drag herself closer, but I took a step back, out of her reach. When she looked up, she met my gaze and saw nothing but cold indifference. It was a coldness she had never seen in me before. Even after everything she had done, she had never seen me look at her like a complete stranger. When I finally spoke, my voice was colder than ice. Chloe, you were such a disappointment. No matter how terrible Caleb was, he was your husband. If you had been able to love him faithfully, I might have even respected you for it. You hurt me for his sake, and now you're hurting him for mine. Is this some kind of game to you? Chloe rushed to explain. No, Ethan, it's not a game. You're the only one I've ever loved. It was Caleb. He lied to me. He led me astray. Don't say you love me. Just admit it, Chloe. You're a selfish, petty person. There's no room in that heart of yours for anyone but yourself. Chloe stared at me in disbelief. Just as she had been unable to argue with Caleb, she was unable to argue with me now. Why had both the men in her life changed so completely in just a few months? They had become unrecognizable, terrifying strangers. All she could do was shake her head, trying to convince herself as much as me. No, Ethan, you have to believe me. It's always been you. The words sounded as if she were trying to convince herself as much as me. Looking at her now, so pathetic and broken, I couldn't remember why I had ever loved her. What kind of person could so completely destroy a love that had once been everything, turning it into nothing but disgust? Ethan, you can't leave me, she sobbed. I've already lost Caleb. I can't lose you too. Ignoring her pleas, I called Mrs. Vance. Then I took Blair's hand, and we walked away. My permanent residency visa for Germany had been approved. Our flight was for 9 o'clock the next morning. The sun would rise on a new day, and with it, the beginning of our new life.